Hello and welcome to In Business Talks 2. We are thrilled to welcome you to our bonus episode, The Friday Fix. In our bonus episode, we will be discussing a business-related subject with either one of our wonderful In Business networking members or a fellow business owner who will be sharing their advice, thoughts or knowledge on a particular topic.
We're your hosts, Tracy and Ian Earle, founders of In Business, a networking and business support community. We host online and face-to-face events and we'd love to meet you, so why not come along? The link to book is in the show notes. Today's guest is Simon Treen, and he is a Leeds-based podcast producer with a diverse working background across sectors and continents. He's looking to build up and support any and all podcast production in Leeds. He's also very interested in labour and employment as topics in themselves, and as such he is working on a long-term podcast project for, by and about Loiners called Working Hours, mapping the employment landscape of his home city across this very crucial decade. So without further ado, let's crack on with our Friday Fix. So welcome to our In Business Talks 2 Friday Fix. Today we have with us Simon Treen, and Simon has a podcast called Working Hours. Welcome, Simon.
Welcome, Simon.
Hello.
Hello.
Good to have you with us today.
It feels a bit...
Is it the boots on the other foot now, isn't it?
Yeah, I was on
get your own
Simon's
back,
podcast a few weeks ago, so we're returning the favour, if you can call it a favour, of Simon being on our podcast. So,
shall we start by asking, Simon, tell us a little bit more about what you do and about your podcast.
Okay, so I'll start with the podcast because the business part came out of doing the podcast. So I'm doing a podcast project where I want to speak to 1,000 people in Leeds over the decade about what they do for work. So I've narrowed it down to a few sort of areas. So I'll start off with what they wanted to be, what they're doing now, how they got into that, then look at areas like social media, Brexit, climate change, and COVID. So I see those as the sort of kind of key news stories of the decade, and I want to look at how those sort of things that we see in the news that we have opinions on as citizens, how that affects our work. You know, like, do we think about these subjects in a different way when we put the work lens on?
Yeah.
And then there's a couple of questions. There's a question on universal basic income, which is a universal payment benefit to everyone, which is not a widely known idea, but I use it as a kind of a way of looking at work through a non-monetary lens, because I am also, for myself, exploring what work is, what do we mean by work, and where is the separation? Like, is volunteer work? Is unpaid labour work? Is the stuff that we do in the home work? Like, does it have to be paid for? And if it has to be paid for, does it have to be hard and miserable, or should it be easy? Like, and is there one answer for everyone? Which I don't think there is, but all of these kind of things. So I want to get a big sample of people, which is the 1,000 people. I gave myself 10 years to do it because this decade is the decade with the climate budget. So this is kind of a key decade for us on a physical, environmental level. And I just want to capture that, however it goes and whatever happens in the decade. So I started, the very first one was 2019. Then we went into 2020, and we all know what happened there.
Yeah.
And I knew it would be an eventful decade, but that was a surprise to me as well. So I'm way behind schedule. So I'm sort of 4 years in, and I've got about 112 published.
Right.
But I'm still going for it, yeah.
So shall we do a little advert here? So if there are any people in Leeds, which I'm sure there are lots of people in Leeds, who work during the day or whenever, day, night, whatever, and would be interested in being on Simon's podcast, then please get in touch with him. We will put all the details of that in the show notes later anyway. So,
yeah, excellent. Thank you. And today, I think what we said is we're gonna have a little chat about being on a podcast. I think not do's and don'ts as such, but things that you've noticed while you've been doing your podcast, almost like preparing people. What should people think about before they go on a podcast, do you think?
Yeah. So the first thing is why you're doing it. So you need your own reason to be on. It's very easy to think, just no, don't do it. But I would say in the first instance, unless it's something that's really bad for your brand or that like the association is terrible, do the podcast in most cases, because it's going to expose you to their listeners, to a different audience, and you never know what that can get you. The second part of why you should do it is get the media practice. You know, you're getting some free publicity, some marketing material there, but you're also getting an opportunity to practice being in the media, being on media.
Yeah.
It's quite scary, isn't it? I know I was quite nervous, even though we do this and we've done quite a few episodes. I was quite nervous being on the other side.
Yeah. And then you
telling my voice.
Well, I mean, I'm a bit the same today, so I'm used to just asking the questions and sitting back and listening to the answers. So it is a bit different to be on the other side and have to speak. But the other thing is, unless you're going out live, one of the things that podcasters will do, or that I've learned to do, and I'm sure you will do the same probably, is not be afraid of silences, because you're being recorded on air. If you're going out live on air, that's dead air. You want to try and fill that space. But when I'm interviewing someone, I can just, if I just stay quiet, they will generally fill the space with something, and that it sort of forces people to talk. But you can also use those spaces as well, so you can take time to think about your answer before you reply. And yeah, try and answer the questions, but also have your own sort of sales thing in mind, because ultimately what you're doing it for is for the marketing. Even if you're doing it for the media practice, you're practicing your marketing, you're practicing your pitching, you're practicing pivoting questions when appropriate towards your brand, towards your content, towards your channels. Like, it's all about being part of that funnel. And it's a really, if you're on 5 different podcasts and even in different areas, just under one business or one brand, you're putting yourself in lots of different spaces there, and you're getting lots of practice, and you're getting practice at pitching to different audiences as well. So yeah, I'd say always do it if you get the chance.
Yeah. It is an experience. Sorry.
Yeah, it is an experience. Yeah. Go on.
No, I'll let you finish. That was it.
Yeah, I
was going to say it is an experience doing these things. Yeah. I'll expand it a bit, but that's all I was going to say. Yeah.
And is it different being on a podcast that's just audio to one that's visual as well? Because some people do, and then they put them on YouTube, and people can sit and watch them, can't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, think of it from a branding angle, from a marketing angle. If you are going to be on video, you want to have a nice shot. You want to look decent. Don't wear stripes and things. Don't wear anything that will confuse the camera or mess things up. Keep the lighting simple. Make sure you've got some lighting. You want to be well lit. You want your face to fill most of the frame if you can. Try and keep your background simple, unlike my mess that and get your brand in there. Like, so many times I see people who are doing video podcasts and they're talking about their company, and there's nothing to show their company there. That's a missed opportunity for visual marketing. Like,
could just be the banner.
Have a banner, wear a uniform, wear a badge, like just anything that puts your brand in the video. Because if any of that content, if they clip any of that out and use just the bit for, social media clips, you're in every bit that, you've got your brand in every bit of that content, not just your name. You've got your company or your product, whatever you want to highlight. The other thing is framing. Again, probably check the podcast first, look at other episodes. Do you want to be center frame? Do you want to be slightly... So in TV, they have what they call talking space. So they center you slightly off center. So one person will be on the left the script left side of the screen, one person will be on the right side of the screen, and when they cut between them, it looks more like a conversation. But a lot of these YouTube videos where we're doing webcam interviews, you've got the camera straight onto you. So if it's straight onto you, try and keep center frame. And if you're doing something that might be, say, in a podcast studio, you're going to be kind of profile wise, try and keep still, because these are low frame rate cameras. Lots of movement creates kind of visual noise. It also makes it much harder for an editor to cut. If you're moving your arms around and you cut between an angle, that can be jarring. So if you can keep, you don't have to stay frozen. That's the other thing. So I don't know if you can identify with this experience, but I remember going onto other people's things and recording, and you're trying to be really still and really quiet, and you just you're not relaxed.
Yeah.
You can relax, but just try and stay still. If you're someone that gesticulates a lot, just be aware of it and
sit on your hands.
Try and keep it. Maybe keep your arms below frame height or something. Like that.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And don't pick your nose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, don't do that. Because as they say, you can pick your... Sorry. Have you heard that one? You can pick your friends and you can pick your nose, but you can't pick your friend's nose. Sorry, that's...
One of his corny jokes.
Sorry. Sorry about that.
I would add as well, a lot of people will I've seen people literally play with pens. Don't do that.
No.
I mean, you've got, fair enough, you've got a nervous habit. Put your hands in your lap, or, that thing of it, like sit on your hands. Do something like that. Don't play with things that will make noise. Don't be in a room, like if you're going to be in the factory and you want factory sound or you want office sound in the background as part of the ambience, fair enough. But try not to be in like really noisy places where no one can hear you. Again, if there is loads of background noise as well, that can make the editing sort of harder to work around. Do
you tend to before people come onto your podcast, and do you tend to prime people with this sort of information? Do you make them aware of it beforehand? Do you say, look, some do's and don'ts, or do you just hope for the best?
I've ummed and ahed about it, and I've seen people do it both ways. I've seen people just sort of. I generally just hope for the best. That will change over time because I've published more episodes. I feel a bit more genuine. When early on, just getting people to speak to me was difficult enough. I think a lot of people, obviously, because I'm talking about work, people have to consider things like their own brand and what they're saying and being an ambassador and so on. Non-disclosure agreements, all these kind of things. But I think one of the big things that a lot of people don't necessarily want to be center of attention. But the other thing is, I think a lot of people are scared of being in content because they have this fear that it's going to get really massive. I know with organizations that when people ask their boss sort of thing, or they ask the firm, some firms are a lot like, ooh, no, because they think it will be bad. The automatic thinking is, what if it's bad? And what if it goes viral? If it's bad, probably most people won't hear it or notice it. So it's generally fine. You can probably ask the people to take it down or change it if you really hate it. But in most cases, nothing bad's going to happen. In most cases, it'll just be fun, and you'll just talk about what you need to talk about. And if you can't do it already, if you can't turn a question around, or you can't answer a question diplomatically, then you've got to deal with that, and you should practice. And it's probably best to practice on small podcasts with not massive audiences, because then if you do a big one with a big audience, you've got that practice, you've got that experience, and you know what to expect.
Yeah.
So what's your worst editing nightmare? Somebody with a cough.
That's mine. Somebody who's constantly coughing.
On Zoom, because you've only got the one track. I think with these kind of sites where we've both got local recordings, even if you've got someone coughing, that's all right. Umming and ahhing, which we briefly discussed.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm doing it all through this talk. People lean on it to think, and it's a vocal tick. If you can do it less, try to do it less. If you catch yourself, I mean, the other thing is, if you are prepared and you have some level of, you know what you're going to say. Obviously, I'm not as prepared as I want to be. You will and ah less. You will, because
Yeah.
you know what you're saying. That's
Yeah.
the other thing as well. Going back to know why you're going on, have things to say. If you're just going on to a podcast and say it's on, let's say, tea making, like, and you've got some brand connection, and or maybe you like the podcast and you're kind of like, I'll try it. They've asked me on for whatever reason. Talk about the tea, but also talk about your brand again. So if you try and have like 3 points that you want to say about the company, the business, and try and get them in there if you can. You know, give yourself your own little challenges, because your answers. The other thing is, you won't be able. In most cases, you're not really going to control how what you've said is presented, because an editor can change things around, drop things out. So yeah, be concise when you are doing sort of calls to actions and so on. The other thing as well, if you want to look professional, know your socials and know that you're going to be asked. And if you're not asked, try and put them in there, or at least one of them. There's a lot of people who, because they're doing something, and a lot of podcasts is kind of like, oh, will you come on my podcast? It's a bit of a favor, or it can seem that way, but it's also marketing. It's your marketing. You know, you wouldn't go into a business meeting unprepared. You wouldn't go in scruffy. You wouldn't go in like doing. You know, you be professional. It's like any other sort of opportunity, and yeah, if you can hammer your message. The more you say it, the more it's going to appear in the show.
Like you say, I mean, we've probably not got a massive audience. I know we haven't.
We're global.
Well, we're global, but one in Japan and one in Australia doesn't really count. But
it is.
But what I'm thinking is the people who've been on our, just sort of to emphasize what you said, the people who've been on our podcast, we've had people come back to us and say they've actually gained business, haven't they? Because they've been on our podcast, which is nice. It's good. It's a bonus, isn't it? So they've promoted themselves. We've had a chat. We've met some lovely people, haven't we?
We have.
We've had some great conversations, and they've one or two people have got business from it simply by being on it, which is good.
It is just another marketing channel, isn't it?
Yeah, I can say exactly the same. I know for sure that there's been one new piece of business that has come out of the podcast. And I know that one has definitely happened. Yeah. But there may be others, and who knows what comes, because they're sort of evergreen. That podcast, that's going to stay up as long as people are paying to host that. And if it's on a free platform, if it's on YouTube, it's going to stay up there until some sweep takes it down. You know, it could potentially be there for decades.
Yes, it could.
That's like marketing content that's out there. If you think of, say, okay, so we can all, I reckon you can have this visual image as well. So if you think of like an old terrace house, and then on the side there's like Fry's chocolate or something, that's some early 20th century advert, and it's there forever, and it's just not being taken down. But it's still doing the advertising thing. It's still making you think of the brand. It's still making you think of the products. And it's like, and that's free, and that just lasted.
For decades. And
it's the same thing potentially with a podcast, and you don't, it's going to reach into places that you can't get with your marketing. And if someone likes you, if they're spending, rather than 5 seconds in a piece of marketing that flashes by or that you scroll by, they're spending 10, 20 minutes with you, with your voice, with your attitude, with the way that you present yourself. It's personable, it's intimate. In most cases, they're going to be listening in earphones, so you're literally directly in someone's head. it's a great opportunity. And which is why I sort of bang my head against the wall sometimes with working hours. Of like, why would you say no? Like, it's free. I get that people might be nervous, but
It's
it's like,
nervous and it's fear, isn't it? It's fear, like
Yeah.
you said. I think, yeah.
yeah. But
It's
I
been
think
that centre of attention. Sorry, yeah, it's been that centre of
yeah,
attention, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, and not everybody wants that. Not everybody wants to be centre of attention. But the other thing is, we go into work and we all have to do these things. We all have to appear in meetings. Most of us have experience of being in Zoom meetings and so on now. It's just like that, except
Yeah.
it's a bit more fun because you're interacting, you're part of the discussion rather than just listening to stuff and putting your digital hand up and asking the odd question.
Yeah. I think the world has changed so much since COVID, and there's been, obviously it was very bad, but I think there's been a lot of positives from COVID as well, simply because people are getting out, people are used to Zoom, people are putting themselves out there, people are saving time by being on Zoom, and people are used to doing things like this a bit more. It's not as daunting now being in front of a camera, is it? I mean, although having said that, if somebody sticks a phone in front of your face at an event and says, "Can you say a few words?" you forget your name and everything. But I don't know why that is. But it's this is easier, isn't it? I think.
Yeah.
I mean, would you have you considered doing video episodes of this show?
We have started doing a few, and we are recording this as
a video as well. It's just the editing that
I think
I'm so used to editing now, just the audio, and I can do it. Well, I say quickly, fairly quickly. I'm not too sure about editing. We've put one out, haven't we? I think on YouTube that we've done.
One or two, I'm not sure.
But that took me ages to edit, and it's like you say, it's so much more difficult because you don't have two soundtracks, so you have to leave quite a lot of stuff, and you think, oh, that's not quite right, but you're sort of stuck because it doesn't make sense when you start chopping out video. so we should do more. We should do more.
Well, it's kind of, there's a level at which you should probably have a YouTube presence, but the other thing is that with audio only, you can get into places that video can't get to.
Yeah.
People can do other things while they're listening to audio.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas a video podcast, you can do it, but you're sort of ignoring the visuals, aren't you? Or you're paying attention, but you kind of split attention. You can't do anything. You can't make something with your hands necessarily while you're watching a video podcast.
No.
It would be easier with an audio podcast.
Yeah. I like listening to podcasts in the car. It helps the journey pass a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
There's so many about now, isn't there? I mean, when you first started, when did we first start? How long ago?
2 years we've been doing it.
It seems like a lot longer than that. But when you started, there probably wasn't that many about, was there? I think I've certainly grown out. I think lots of people are doing podcasts now. I can imagine it was quite rare when you did it, was it?
It's just expanding and expanding. I mean, what I would say is, so still, I haven't researched this, so this is based on one of my someone that I work with who has just done, because you should be doing your research on anything, but they've just started a podcast in their research, and then they were like, most people don't get to 10. So I suppose another tip is try and do podcasts that have got over 10, because they're more likely to stick around for a bit longer.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do one that's just starting up, because it could be really useful to be the first guest on a podcast or something like that.
Yeah.
And they might invite you back as well if you're good, if the episode does well, they might invite you back, and you might and then you've got more practice, and then you've got another chance to shine, and get your brand in front of people, get you in front of people. I mean, the other thing with working hours is it's as much like you could treat it, an individual who's recording for the show could treat it as much as a LinkedIn page as anything else, so it's about your personal brand as much as the brand that you're selling, because as you're being the ambassador for your brand, you're being the ambassador for yourself. You are promoting yourself as well, and you might stay in that area, And if you've got a whole bunch of podcasts in that particular niche or in your specialty, that shows, that's more expertise online. That's more social proof. That's more things online that Google can find pointing to you. I kind of lost my point there. I was going to say something else, but I kind of got lost in my own point.
What were we talking about?
No, I think what you're trying to say there was about getting your brand out by being present, almost being there, being visible and showing up, which I think you've got to do, haven't you? I think if you're running a business, you've got to. If you want people to know about you, you have to stand up a bit, haven't you, and shout a bit and say, "Look, I'm here." Otherwise, if people don't know you're there, they won't buy from you, will they? That's my philosophy.
Yeah. And you've kind of got to unnecessarily shout at some people as well. That's the thing that I think a lot of the time we feel uncomfortable with, is like, you don't want to bother people who aren't interested in your product, but then you can't find people who are interested in your product until you've bothered a bunch of people going, are you interested in this? And it's got to be done.
True.
So basically, you've just got to get over yourself and get on a podcast.
Yeah, get on a podcast. Get on your podcast. Get on your podcast.
Yes. Please do.
Really
I mean, the other thing that I would mention is mention your brand. Like, my product is, I'm also making podcasts for other people. So if you're a private individual, if you're an organisation or third sector or a charity or something like that, if you are a company in Leeds and you want to have a podcast, or you have a podcast and you want to sort of farm off some parts of it, whether it's production, editing, or you want support with recording, or you're just doing it on your own and you want someone to talk to you about how it's quite lonely doing a podcast sometimes, then get in touch. Anything podcast wise, I want to sort of help.
And what's the best way for them to get in touch with then, Simon? If somebody's listening and thinking, I could do with some help on that, what's the best way for them to contact you?
I could give you the phone number. If you're Leeds based, just ring 0754 303 7263, or go to my website, which is western-studios.com. And
are you on LinkedIn as well, by any chance? Are you on LinkedIn? Oh, yeah. Okay, cool.
Simon Treen.
Well, what we'll do, obviously, we'll put all those details in the show notes if anyone missed that. So we'll stick those in there.
Are your podcasts on YouTube then?
So yeah, they are. What I would ultimately like to do is have a few video episodes. There is the first one forthcoming. But again, it's one of those things I'm building up to, because I feel like I've only just started convincing people to speak to me, without showing their face and putting their name to it. So that's the next step, is convincing people to let me put them on YouTube and show their face.
That's a bit a harder sell, isn't it?
It is, but again, it's like, I have to build that confidence, don't I? I have to kind of show the benefits, and not everyone does, but I do try and focus on looking after my guests, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Make us feel relaxed. Yeah.
Well, and also like the safety. It's been a difficult one to sort of what do you cut out and what do you keep in, and I've settled into what people feel confident with sharing, but then sometimes you kind of think, I don't know if you ever get this when you're editing, but some people will say something and you're like, I'm not sure I should put that out. That might, but I'm not sure that came across as they wanted it to come across.
Yeah, I've had a couple of bits like that, and I've edited those bits out. Yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah, but you do make everyone feel welcome, and hopefully we have done the same for you.
Yeah, no,
so
it's
people shouldn't be afraid. They should just do it. They should just do it.
Yeah. Okay. And the final thing, know your host's name. It's very easy not to do, and you don't want to go through the whole interview and then at the end you're sort of like, oh, thanks, Vladimir, whatever. The most random name I could and pick the worst one possible.
Cool.
But yeah, get the get the show right, the name of the show right, get the name of the guest, the name of the interviewer right, know what show you're on, and try and enjoy it as well. Like I know I'm giving you sort of things to think about, but it is fun. Just relax into it. But think of the easy wins. Like stay quiet so you get a clear audio. Try and be in a nice room so you've got good sound. If you can, have a separate mic and have headphones, and just go off and have a chat. Have random chats with people online, and you'll enjoy it. It's fun.
Yeah, and who knows where it will lead?
Yeah. Excellent. I think we've had some good pointers there and some good tips from Simon there on podcasting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for that, Simon.
Yeah, great stuff. Thank you very much, Simon. So you've given us how we can get in touch with you, and I think that's probably about it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time. Yes, good to see you.
Thanks for having me on, and it's been great to be on a different podcast. And I look forward to hearing it.
And good luck with your 1,000 recordings as well. Let's hope you get them done.
We'll have to have you back in a few years and see how you're doing with that.
Yes, do. I'll still be going, but hopefully the number will be. Let's see if I can get above 500.
Cool. Take care anyway. We're almost at the end of this week's show, and just as a reminder before we go, don't forget to book your place at one of our online networking events where you can meet some great business owners and build those business relationships. If you're in the Leeds, Harrogate, York or Wakefield area, then why not come along to one of our face-to-face events to meet us? And remember, the best business comes from the best relationships. The link is in the show notes. Do you wish you could network with more confidence? We understand the challenges you face. Whether you're new to networking or simply looking to improve your skills, our networking know-how course will take you through the process and provide you with the practical tips and techniques to help you make more meaningful connections.
We'd also like to mention our books, which are available on Amazon. The first one is How to Improve Your Business Networking Skills, 52 Tips to Help You with Your Networking. We've got our Notably Networking, which is a one-to-one networking notebook, and it's a place to keep all those notes from those follow-up one-to-ones. And last but not least, our 90 Days to Your Success Journal, where you can plan, set and plot those actions that you will take to achieve your goals. Thank you so much for joining us this week on In Business Talks 2 Friday Fix. We hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, all that we ask is that you simply tell a friend about the show, and please follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'd really appreciate it.
So, until next time, this is Ian and Tracy, and together we are in business.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.